What is up, Podheads? Back for the 250th time with an episode of the Podioslave podcast. My name is Tony. I'm joined by Anthony. And I'm going to ask you, how are you doing? Because 250 weeks in a row, man.
250. I love the stat. When we started the pod, you know, you're looking up stats, you're looking up how to do a podcast, all that. The average podcast lasts 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I think we're a little beyond that.
Just a touch, just a bunch, just a little bit. And we've got some more stuff in the pipeline. So we're clearly into it. 5 years later. It's
funny you say we're into it, because we are still into it. And apparently Finn McKenty was never into it. Punk Rock MBA, if you're familiar with following that story.
Yeah. We aren't, there's no faking it here. We're not looking up Wikipedias and just reciting them. And we've lived a lot of what we've talked about over the course of 250 episodes, and I'm pretty proud of that number. I never thought we'd get to this point. I never thought we'd still be doing it this long. It was always just kind of, let's have some fun, mess around a little bit, see what happens. And then we started getting people that wanted to talk with us, and we're down to clown a little bit, like Damien. This part 2 that's coming at you here in just a couple of minutes, but it's really cool that we're still doing it, and every week for 250 weeks. I think we switched from Fridays to Mondays one week, and that was it.
Yeah, well, and if you've been listening to us for a while, you'll remember we used to do the in real time. So we would release those later in the week. So you were getting 2 episodes out of us, and they were minis. They were like, 10, 15 minute type of things, quick kind of in the moment reaction. So if you add those in, it's probably what? We're 265?
Like yes, because there's a couple episodes at the end of last year we just didn't number because we wanted Tucker's rule to be 200.
Oh, right.
Right, I think. Was it 200? Yeah, he was 200. We're all the time. So, yeah, we're well over 260 at this point, but 250 proper. It's a cool number. It's a nice round number. And, here's to 251 next week. I'm not going to say 250 more because you never know, but here's to 251 next week.
Yeah. And it is funny, like not a lot, but a few of the bands that we've interviewed, when you dial it back to their early stories, they were like, yeah, we didn't know what we're, do you know you were going to be here in 20 years? No fucking clue. They had no idea. Neither did we, but not like we're a well-known band, but you get what I'm saying. I mean, you just don't know. You just having fun with some buddies, and that's exactly what we did with Damien. But before we do that, we released our year-end episode a couple weeks ago at this point.
Yep.
And I listened back to it. Actually, I listened back to it just to kind of get a feel for Sean's and your picks that I may or may not have known. Well, in doing that, I realized I left off 2 that were big records for me this year, and then one that I recently got into. So those few records are these. And it's funny, we talk about the band, but I never mentioned the record. Knock Loose's You Won't Go Before You're Supposed to.
Yep.
I love that record. It was a great record for them. Total level up. It was just really a piece of art. The second one, Touche Amore, Spiral in a Straight Line.
Mm-hmm.
Great record. There's a song on that album called Hal Ashby. It's one of my favorite songs of the year. I kept coming back to that song. They bring Ross Robinson back. It got a little more polish on it for them, but it does not lose. They don't lose their edge. It's a great record. Third one is the band Good Terms. They were a recent kind of discovery, and I don't even know that I'd heard of them. A lot of bands that we come across and listen to, it's like, well, I've heard the name, but I hadn't even heard the name. And we recently came across them. The album's called Burnout. Really good. Pop punk with breakdowns, but more than that. Than that. There's more to it than that. But yeah, I forgot to shout those out because at least the first 2 I did spend a lot of time with this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I like those first 2, and I didn't think to write them down, and I'm not sure why, because I spent some time with the Knock Loose record. I liked it, probably a little less than you, but that's just because I don't live in that world as much. But I do. It is definitely a level up. They are bringing it on that record, and it's definitely worth time if you like heavy music. And then that Touche Amore record, I had never really dug into them, and I really liked that record. So I'm right there with you on that one. I don't know why that one slipped both of our minds for the year end. So go check those out if you haven't. And the Good Terms record is great. I listened to it the other night for the first time. I'm in on them.
Yeah, I'm surprised Sean didn't bring up Touche. I feel like I don't know that he likes them or knows that. I know he knows of them, I'm sure, but feels like a band that would be in his wheelhouse. Yeah, I want to shout those out. Let's get to Damien a little bit. So this is part 2 of our conversation with Damien. The first half, which was a few weeks ago at this point, you can find it. That was, talking about their recent tour and the new EP and all that. This second half, Nerds at the Bar. It is a hang. It's a hangout. It's a late night hangout. We talk records. We talk records that Damien bought in Europe. What else we talk? I mean, we hit on a lot.
Yeah, no, we hit on a bunch of stuff. Yeah, podcasts, any and everything that you can think of that you'd get to in the second half of an episode, where things are just kind of loose, and we've asked all the questions that we had prepped for, but a little bit more about their tour in Europe. I think we hit on the Hot Water Music tour they did with Hot Water Music and Quicksand, as well as obviously I think they played a show. He told us the story of playing a show at the Print Room, I think was the name of the place.
Yeah,
on their one off day when they were out there, that one of their 2 off days out there, and they get to play their own kind of headliner and play a little longer and play some of the new stuff. So that's all in there, which we didn't talk about in the first episode. So yeah, it's a hang. It's absolutely Nerds at the Bar. His dog makes you. I think I cut out as much of the noise as I could, but his dog is there like the whole time hanging out, and that's kind of fun too, because it didn't stop him from nerding with us the whole time. He took him out to go to the bathroom at one point, and there is a break. But other than that, we went for 3 hours, which was pretty fun.
Love the 3 hour hangs. And I got to be honest, like episodes like this, obviously the first half was phenomenal. Love it, love it. But the fact that it can even turn into this second episode like this it's what we would do even if we didn't have a guest. That's what me, you, Nate have been doing for 25 years. And throw someone new in the mix. We love it. So I
did that the other night with Nate and Rob for 3 hours. So without recording anything.
You should have recorded it.
Yeah, we thought about it after, like, shit, this is what we would do anyways, right? But yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of fitting. Damien joined us for 250. Maybe he'll be back for episode 500. No promises, though.
No, none at all. But you never know. Here's to 251.
So you've seen like cycles of heavy music. And I think when we had you on, I think it was in 2021. I think it was. It was when Turnstile was having a moment. We were talking about how hardcore and just broadly heavy music is having a moment. Well, that trajectory has kept going up. And so I'm curious, is this the biggest like heavy music or underground music has ever been in from your vantage point? Like Knocked Loose just played Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah. And that's big.
That's crazy. I mean, there have been heavy bands on that stage before, but maybe not with their roots, There
have been heavy bands on those stages. There've also been more obscure, kind of more underground bands on those stages. Like, not Jimmy Kimmel necessarily, but like on different late shows, you would have like Jawbox or,
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So yes and no. Yes, in the sense that I feel like just, if you just look at the numbers, the number of like attendees at shows and festivals, but also like I guess how big the market, the consumer audience is for hardcore, because I think there are a lot more people, especially young kids, high school age kids, that are like consuming music, but not necessarily going to shows regularly yet. They
That's even crazy.
Still be a couple of years, out of away from their parents letting them, or them having a ride or a car. So like, there's that weird phase where like you don't have transportation yet, but you're already into the shit.
You just want to get there, but you're 15, right?
Until you can see it,
and you see it on TikTok.
You don't even want to see it because you don't know what you're missing because you haven't seen it yet. Until you're just doing your duty as a fan and a music consumer by like buying the music. So I think the number of people doing that is I think pretty fucking big when you look at like the plays that the Scowls and Turnstiles and Knocked Looses and Military Gun, like all of those bands that have sort of flirted with
it's permeated the mainstream.
Yeah. Even like Jesus Piece, or it doesn't all have to be like have pop sensibility. It can even just be on the more like metal side. There are bands that are transitioning into kind of bigger audiences, for sure. So I think the scale, the audience is maybe bigger, but I feel like it doesn't feel it doesn't feel to me like what's happening now is quite as it's 95 was when the first Warp Tour was.
Yeah.
The only Warp
Quicksand
Tour
was on it, I think.
Yeah. That felt like a moment where everyone, you know, from like Sick of It All to the like major labels were launching these kind of like major independent subsidiaries, and they were all going for hardcore bands or hardcore adjacent. You know, it could be Into Another, Sick of It All, Quicksand, and you know, Job Helmet, any of that kind of stuff. That felt like a moment where, to me, I was just like, "What's going on?" You know, I mean, I was young too. I was still just like a few years into it myself, but it felt like something was afoot more than it does now.
Yeah.
Now I just feel like what's happening is bands that were playing off-putting music started playing more accessible music. And it turned out that like they're pretty good at writing accessible music. And
Right.
it's fun to have people like the music you're liking. And it's even more fun to have even more people like the music you're writing. So I don't fault a band like Scowl, you know, for like starting to sing more and writing songs that have more kind of like pop appeal, because who doesn't like more people singing along to their songs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think more people singing to your songs is great, as long as the people singing to your songs aren't shitheads.
I've thought about
That's
this
fair.
a lot. If I was in a band and we put out something that was maybe different than the last, you know, there's a more melody and it took, would I sell out? Fuck yeah, I would sell. Why not?
Yeah, there's some of that. There's, I mean, to a level. I mean, I think it's hard to, because we're on such a smaller scale with this content, and then Podioslave as an entity. But like, I know we could go down one lane, and we try not to on purpose. But I know we probably, if we went down the one lane, maybe would have a few more people paying attention or get marketed a little differently or better, and it might lead to some things that, you know, more people to pay attention to what we're doing. But because we're kind of all over the map, it's, I'm sure people come and go. And I kind of like, because I'm a music fan that likes a lot of stuff being all over the map, but I understand why it's harder to market that. So if you're it's harder to market screaming versus maybe adding a little singing in there, a little melody in there.
Right. And you guys would have to change your format or structure yourself with a little bit more discipline, and probably in ways that you didn't enjoy doing or didn't come quite as naturally
100%.
in order to get there. And that's where the problem is like, if you're doing something different to get there, there's a problem.
Yes,
if what
exactly.
you're doing organically gets you there, like Turnstile didn't just make this hard pivot to like starting to write, you know, that kind of stuff. They kind of, the first EP was a bit more traditionally hardcore, but there was always that sort of bounce coming through, and those melodies.
Nonstop Feeling has 311 parts in it.
Nonstop Feeling was, I feel like it's been a pretty, I mean, you could see that trajectory. You watched it happen.
We call them stair steps here on this podcast.
Yeah,
we do. You're right.
They didn't like, you know, disappear for 2 years and come back. You know, 21 Pilots. They were always moving in the direction that they're moving. They're still moving in it. You know, they're just doing their thing. Their thing works for the audiences. Great. But yeah, I think when a band goes from sounding like, you know, Never Ending Game or some like super like beat downy mosh shit to like sounding like Turnstile from one record to the next, that's where it starts to get a little suspect, where it's like, okay, now you've seen something working and you basically went to a stylist, had them put you in some tie-dye and short shorts, and now you're just like a PacSun band. Like you can't do that. Just do your thing. And, you know, if people like it, cool, I guess, you know, but at least it was a happy accident. And I think that's been the thing for me, is like, I would be open to a certain amount of attention or success if like a certain song just like stuck, or somebody was like, hey, can I put this in a movie? And then it was like, all of a sudden we're just a streaming wonder, whatever, if it just happened, but I would never want to like alter, like deliberately set out to make that happen.
Yeah.
That's gross,
That feels, it just feels disingenuous, right? It feels like you're not doing what you want to do. You're doing what you think people want you to do.
Right. Yeah. It's then you're just like your retail music,
And the thing is, even if you make that pivot and it hits, for it to hit to the scale that you can actually make a living from it, it's such an edge case. It is such a 1 in a million. And that's why, like, I don't know. You mentioned Scowl. They're a perfect example, right? I think they have all the ingredients to really pop off, and they have. They always say, the Taco Bell commercial and all this stuff. But they're such an outlier. Like, to even get to where they are now, it doesn't happen. And there's a lot of bands that do it, and it just not only doesn't work, it worked so bad that they're not even accepted back into the scene that got them there. And that's when it gets problematic. That's happened before.
Tough. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think the thing with Scowl is I think they're better at this than they were at whatever they were before. So I'm not really sure why anyone wants them to still be that anyway, because it was like you would rather them just be a hardcore band, a hardcore band like many others, than just doing something that's weird and, offensive to some people and really saccharine and, like easy for other people. Like, just let them fucking be weird. I've been waiting for hardcore to get weird again for a long, long time. So I'm just happy that it is.
Okay, so you said again, what era or who was weird? I want to hear this.
So to me, like as someone who came up on, the staples of like Minor Threat, Black Flag, but then pretty quickly, or like Dag Nasty, Suicidal, shit like that. But then New York hardcore, like, was, I guess, phase 2 for me. And I liked when I first heard Burn, or when I first heard
that's weird. Yeah.
Even Into Another, which is a band that I never took to. I loved that they were it was fucking weird. Iceburn, weird. Split Lip was weird. Like, there
all
was
the obscure rev bands. Yeah.
Yeah, there were a lot of chances being taken, and I don't think that like bands were necessarily trying to be like post-hardcore or something else. I think they were just writing their next records, and that was like a fun time where you were constantly questioning your own definition of what hardcore was or sounded like, because just when you think you have it figured out, this band puts out this record and now I'm not so sure, like, maybe hardcore can be a lot more. And I think that Turnstile, whether you like them or not, kind of did that. I feel like they, Angel Dust, along with them, kind of a sister band. I would say, like, even what are they called? Cold World.
Cold World, yeah,
yeah,
from
How
Pennsylvania.
That they have that album, right?
Oh yeah.
In a more like kind of like street sort of way, like
kind of the street way. It was the whole
weird
Locking Out era. I love the Locking Out era.
Yeah.
They fit that perfect. I don't even know if they had a proper Locking Out release, but like Mental, it was different. It was different.
Yeah, that whole I was sort of absent for that, like, Mental, Righteous Jams, Justice.
I love that.
Came in like and
Justice. Yeah, that was my era. I love that shit.
I came in. I had to like kind of get caught up because I sort of stepped away for a minute. But yeah, that was cool. That was old but new. And I was gonna say, like, Cold World to me is sort of like in the early mid '90s. Crown of Thorns was like, here's this band that's kind of hard and has this whole like street sort of graffiti train yard.
And the lyrics are soft. Yep.
Well, I remember the first release that I ever heard from them. I'm not sure if it was their first release, but like there were like heavy vocal effects on the whole thing for no reason. Like, the rest of the music was just regular old, like, kind of metallic hardcore with some New York like bounce, but they were like heavily affected vocals, and it was fucking bizarre. It almost like tied it sort of to like Handsome or some of those other like post-hardcore, quicksandy sort of hardcore adjacent New York bands. But yeah, I just feel like in general there was a lot more like risk taking, a lot more. Maybe it's that the buckets weren't so defined yet, so it was harder to get stuck in one.
That's a great point. Yeah, that's a great point. You're right. I think being able to, or today, everybody is so quick to put something into under this label, and like it has to be here. It can't be over here too, even though it wants to do some of that stuff. And back then, maybe you could get away with a little more of being under a couple of different labels.
Yeah, yeah. And it was also before. I think it was in that sweet spot of like it was only like maybe the second decade of hardcore, so there wasn't a whole lot of like revisiting or rehashing the past yet, because it was still sort of at the tail end of its newness, and that was a cool. I don't know. That was just a cool time. But yeah, I feel like there are more bands doing strange things now,
and it didn't feel try hard, because I think like take Quicksand and Into Another and Orange 9mm. That was just people growing up. Like literally, that's what it was. You know, where now you're like you said, the goalposts have been defined, and I don't know. There's a lot of caricatures of certain things, and and to kind of shoot some bail to the new crowd. A lot of things feel forced and like it's a replication of something. It's harder to be unique now. It's harder to be weird without being pigeonholed or compared to something from the past.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, there is also still a good amount of that. Where you hear a lot of like, you know, new hardcore bands pop up and it's just like negative approach worship or, you know, Devo worship or whatever. And it's like, well, that's cool. And that's fun, you know, to hear a band do something like that, but like, you know, do something else.
Is this turning into a two-parter again?
We're getting there. Yeah.
No, let's move on. All right. We're
No. That was,
This is what we did add this question in at the end to get this conversation going. So we wanted to have your perspective on it because it had been a while.
I mean, I think this will be episode 247. For us to do this every fucking week, like we obviously love this. Like,
yeah. No, it's
but
great.
yeah, it's heavy music. It's interesting. Like there's a lot of like I don't know if you have like Sirius XM radio, but like stuff that's on like Octane and Liquid Metal. It's very kind of commercialized, and it's intended for big audiences. And then you have like Knocked Loose, which I don't think they've changed their sound one lick from the early days, and they're on Kimmel. So it's a wild time right now.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
Yeah, and they're is one of the only things I know about Billy Strings or Knocked Loose is that Billy Strings is a huge Knocked Loose fan.
Yeah, he's a heavy music guy. I've heard that.
Yeah. Everything I know about Billy Strings, I know from our drummer Tim.
He's played a couple sold out shows in our area. It was either last summer or the summer before. Played an outdoor venue, back-to-back nights, and sold out quick. So people dig him too.
Yeah.
I know nothing.
I like what I've heard, but I'm just not at a bluegrass curious point in my life. Like, you know?
If we named episodes, Bluegrass Curious would be the name of this episode.
Yeah,
it is funny. Like there's acts. So we're based out of Maine, and Portland. It's kind of quirky. It's not quite Portland, Oregon quirky, but it's kind of quirky with what draws well. And Billy Strings could sell out 5,000-6,000 cap easily here, and I'd never heard of him until 2 years ago.
Same.
Or a year ago.
I had no idea. Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, he'll sell out 3-4 nights in a row at the same, like, you know, theater, whatever. Yeah, and he's apparently got some pretty good values as an artist.
Well, maybe I'll be bluegrass curious later today and listen to some Billy Strings and see if it's
BG curious. Yeah.
See if it's see if strikes my fancy. I don't know.
I'll get there.
Maybe it's time.
You know, I had the "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou" Soggy Bottom Boys sound. You know, back in the day, I might have even talked with a little Alison Krauss. That's not bluegrass, and that's a little bit more on the Cheryl Crow tip, I guess. But
yeah. Well, she did that record with Robert Plant, right? So I remember.
That's what drew me in. Yeah.
Yeah, she drew well with Plant. I think they played here.
They did a couple of years ago. Same venue outside.
Oh wow. Yeah. That recently.
Yeah, not that long ago. But since the pandemic, right? I think probably 21 or 22. It was pretty recent.
He's done a lot of interesting stuff in his latter years.
I got to see him once. I got to see him with The Strange Sensation in Boston in 2005, maybe. So I did get to see him. I obviously never saw Zeppelin, but I was
that
like,
was
this is the next
before
best thing.
Band of Joy stuff, right?
Yeah. This was Robert Plant and The Strange Sensation. We saw them in Boston, and the next night we drove down to Mansfield, Mass, and saw Tom Petty and Black Crowes. Like that was our weekend. I was 19 or 20 years old. I was like, we're going to. This is what we do in the summer. We just go to concerts. We drive all over New England and go to concerts.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Huh. And now we're 40, and you get
just talk about those times. Yeah,
we just talk.
Just sit in the basement.
Yeah, just talking about
pretty much
rehashing the old visions, man.
Yeah. What else we got? What else do we want to talk about?
All right, let's keep it going. And if this is a two-parter, we can do it a two-parter. Give us some extra content here. I'm curious, Damien, who you're into in like the modern wave of, we'll call it heavy music.
Oh,
because like you're older, wiser, probably more jaded than me. You can see through the bullshit more than me. So I'm curious what you like.
I mean, Twan, you see through the bullshit pretty well. I'm not gonna lie to you, but yeah.
Like, what's permeated Damien's like audio lens, audio filter?
Okay, so heavy music wise, I'm looking at my most recent library entries. I've got Surrender the Weapon, which is people from, I don't remember which older hardcore bands, but it's some sort of, I don't know if it's a super group necessarily, but it's some veterans. I think it might be somebody from like Bulldoze or something. I don't know. Surrender the Weapon. I saw somebody post about it. I think it was a version online or a version online. Very burn. Pretty good. The music is like really fucking interesting, and the vocals are very Shaka, which is cool because I like those vocals, but it's also weird if it's not Shaka doing it. Bedsore, which is some proggy death metal stuff. What else we got? Mile End. They're a New Morality zine band that, I don't know, I think I stumbled across like an ad or something, and I've been liking that.
New Morality, that's what Spite House is on, right?
Are they?
Yeah. Do you listen to Spite House?
No.
I love that record from a couple years ago now, right? That came out in 22 because we talked to Max the end of last year, right around now last year.
I think you'd like it, Damien. Yeah. If you like some of the maybe mid-career title fight stuff, maybe some fiddlehead in there.
Okay.
Really good. But they're on NMZ.
All right. Yeah, I'll look into that. I got Obnoxious Youth, Burning Savage album, which is really good. That came out this year. That's probably on my list of albums of the year. That's like very sort of glam metal-y, rock and roll-y like music with just really sort of repulsive black metal kind of like.
So the glam rock took off.
Yeah.
Glam rock casket stuff took off.
It worked.
Yeah. We're revisiting that, and I'm thinking now that I might just go like, what if I actually did just give it the vocals it needs? So because I'm feeling a little axely lately, so I'm like, I just new approach this.
Yeah, that's fun though. That's fun.
Oh, this band, The Pill, they're German punk band with a female vocalist. Hopefully, I'm not misgendering there. It's really good. It's just like really good, sort of driving, simple, energetic punk like music. And then her vocals are a little scratchy and smoky, a little lower than you are. They're not low, but they're like, they don't, but every now and then she kind of like gets a little fierce and weird. And her phrasing's really interesting because it's really sort of like drips all over the songs. And I remember seeing or coming across them last year, and I put them on my weekly listening list. And a friend in Germany checked them out because he saw them on the list and realized that they were from the city he lives in.
Wow.
I think. And he on this tour gifted me this record. It's like a limited edition their album. So it's this square record with a toy, as part of the cardboard jacket.
Oh, wow.
I've never heard of anything like this.
There's a toy of the singer, like an action figure.
Oh, wow.
If you grab her body and then her legs and pull them apart, her legs come out and they turn out to be the handles of a shank, like a shiv that has blood on it.
Wow.
I mean, it's all plastic, but
are you making this shit up?
No, I'm gonna go grab it.
I'll go grab it. Yeah, yeah.
Really cool. I might take a minute because I think the dog's been asking to go outside to pee.
All right, I'll pause the record real quick.
3 weeks later.
Oh, wow.
And there it is. Look at that.
I've never seen anything like it. That must be a shipping nightmare.
That's amazing, actually. I that's so cool.
Yeah, everything about this is just really cool. That's the normal cover.
Okay, I saw that. I did a Google image search, and that came up.
That's quite
Yeah.
good. So wait, so you must have, did you get this when you were in Europe?
Yeah. He brought it to me at a show and was like, I had never heard of the band until I saw them on your list, and then I really loved the record, and it turned out that they were from my town. And then, so this is the singer.
Nice.
No way.
That's amazing. Oh, man.
One, how do you think of that? And how do you like source someone to make that? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And this limited edition, this toy version, I don't think it's the label that put the record out initially, but Sounds of Subterranea from Germany was they were putting out Caleb Stewart, our bass player, our former bass player's solo music before he passed away.
Oh, wow.
So I was like, oh shit, and it's on Caleb's label. That's pretty cool.
So did you bring like a whole extra suitcase, or did you like hide that in the gear to get it home?
No, I found room in my suitcase. Our new thing is getting rid of clothes during tour.
Nice.
Yeah. You pack some stuff that you don't really care about so that you can leave it to make room. Or I had a pair of pants get like torn in the ass the first couple of days of tour, so those went. Yeah.
So you went on stage in jorts. I get it. No, that makes sense to me. And then you left them in the last place. Yep. I mean, that's a smart move though. Get rid of stuff. I should start doing that when I travel. Just like bringing 6 shirts and 4 of them don't make it home.
Yeah. All the like socks and underwear that you like, the last resort socks.
Yeah.
See you later.
Yeah.
So, Damien, last time we had you on, I think, or maybe it was the time before, I can't remember. It all blends together. We talked briefly about comeback albums, and we talked about how the Hum Inlet album was awesome. And then you mentioned a band named Slow Dive.
Oh, yeah.
You said they had an all-time record.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I got a question for you. Slow Dive is coming to Portland, Maine in February.
Yeah. Yep.
Should we go?
Yes.
I know. I think of you when I saw. The first thing I thought of was our conversation with you when that got announced at one of our favorite venues, and I was like, I should probably go to that. Like that needs to happen.
Did you check out that record? That 2000?
Yes.
What was it? 17?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, I did a little deep dive after that.
Yeah. I dug it.
I haven't really come back to it, but if they feel like a band that would crush live, you can just vibe out. It would be an experience. Have you ever seen them or?
No, never.
No. So we're gonna go and rub it in your face.
Yeah, we'll go. Actually, fly out to Portland and come to the show with us.
I've never been to Maine. I've been to New Hampshire.
Oh wow! Did As Friends Russ play in New Hampshire?
As Friends Russ played. Yeah, we played in Portsmouth.
Ooh, wow! That's like Tony's neighbor.
You were literally 5 minutes from Maine proper.
Oh, cool. Yeah. We played there with on that with Dillinger 4 and Discount.
Oh wow!
And then our drummer Tim was married in New Hampshire in Rye.
Oh yeah, they have that big skate park, that big hangar building. There was a former like some type of aviation base there that they converted to a big in Rye. Yeah, some big skate park they converted it into.
Huh. I didn't see much. We were there for his wedding. We went to like the Smutty Nose.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Having grown up in Florida with like just Miami beaches, it was cool to see like the kind of the rocky, cliffy, kind of seaside. You know.
It was so cool you never came back.
So cool, never came back. But we did on that trip revisit, went to Portsmouth because I remembered liking it on that tour, and we went up there for lunch on one of those days that weekend, and it was still cool.
Tony and I were in Detroit 2 months ago.
Oh shit! For what?
We were
a
wedding. Yeah,
Wow.
early October. Yep.
Huh.
Couple of days. We flew in Friday and we're out Sunday morning. But our buddy of ours got married, and we were right on the water. Like you can see Windsor. It's pretty cool. Cool. We enjoyed Detroit. We walked around. We went to Third Man. Went to a couple different places just because we were there. We're like we're music nerds, so let's find the music places that we can see.
Yeah, for sure. Nathaniel and his wife Rachel were married in Detroit, also like right on the river.
Oh, right on.
Also a few months ago.
No way.
But, maybe
it was the same wedding. We didn't.
Did we just miss them? I mean,
wedding crash that.
Yeah.
Well, all right. So we're gonna go to Slow Dive. You've given us who you're digging right now on the heavy music front. Who else are you listening to right now?
Oh yeah. Who else am I listening to? Well, a lot of Hot Water music.
What are you digging from the Hot Water catalog? Because Vows was great this year, right? And then you got like Caution is kind of the classic older record. I'm gonna look up that one from last year.
2022. Feel the Void.
Feel the Void.
Yeah, Feel the Void.
Yeah,
Crushed.
Feel the Void. Caution.
Feel for the Hate Game is great.
Yeah, that's more like
early.
Old. Yeah.
Caution. Exister was great.
Yeah, I like that one, and that seems to be kind of a sleeper. But that has that song "Drag My Body," which they played on tour. And
they still play that.
Really, pretty great live.
Bill Stevenson from Descendants produced that.
Did he do that one? Oh shit!
Yeah.
Okay. There's a kind of a metallic hardcore band from Italy called Caged that a couple that I was talking to in Copenhagen recommended, and I've been digging that. It's nice and kind of raw.
So are you, all these years in, are you still seeking, is there that still like burning for new music?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh yeah. We have it. It hasn't left. I don't think it'll ever leave. It'll never leave.
Never.
No, that's sort of the upside of these like shortened attention spans is like I'm not one of those old guys that's just like keep listening to everything I listened to in 93 because that's the good stuff. I get bored of fucking everything. So I just constantly I require new music constantly. And I'm like very open to suggestion. That was kind of one of my favorite things on this tour was like, because we would play early and it was a short set, I could go put on a dry shirt, get a beer, walk out to check on T, our merch guy, and just hang out and like talk to people and watch the bands. And I got in a lot of conversations with people where I ended up pulling out my phone and just being like, hold on, spell it. And I'm just like plugging in bands because I'm trying to mine from more sources.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are you listening to? So anything that someone's like really excited about or passionate about, like I'll give it a spin. I listen to a ton of shit every week that I've never heard before, and I don't like it all, but I still want to listen to it all. Yeah. I won't know if I like it or not until I listen to it. So I have to listen to it.
Well, it's always fun to crack open something that you've either been recommended or just happen to see in passing, and you're like, that sounds like something or hear in passing, that sounds like something I might dig into and really dig. And when you find what, every now and then you find a gem or a couple of them, and it's like, all right, that's why I do this. All right, let's go find another one. And come back to some of those old ones, but keep finding them.
Yeah. Even if the gem is one song on that album, it's like
because that's sometimes the case.
Yeah, I'm not sold on the album. I'm not sold on the band, but I've listened to this song like 27 times.
I've found it's harder to truly connect with music. Like I would say in the life of this podcast, 4.5 years, there's been maybe 10 bands that I've truly connected with that are kind of net new, like newer bands where I really dove in. And I don't know if that's because it's the whole digital experience and we live in the corner of the US and no one ever tours here, but I don't know. I found myself going back to the classics more.
Yeah. I think it's to some extent it's a bit inevitable, and I think it's like age related and just we may have talked about this on one of the other episodes, but like I had read something once about how the reason music from your adolescence or your, maybe up until like your early 20s feels so much better is because you're connecting with it more deeply emotionally, and you're connecting with it more deeply emotionally
right.
because of all these other variables that are like you don't have real obligation, you have time, that you're not going to have later. You have you don't need to work as hard or make as much. You are a dysregulated mess because
and you could drive around with your buddies and listen to it and you're all singing. And now it's like my kids
you're
don't
19,
like this music. So
your heart is broken.
Yep.
You're fucking lonely. You want to kill yourself. Of course music's going to sound great.
Yeah.
You know.
And those songs that got you through that time are going to be the ones that you're like, I still love those because they got me through that time. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you just feel it differently because you're able to feel it differently. But I think it takes work. It's definitely harder
Yeah, it does.
to connect on that level. And there was a while where I didn't think I could anymore. I was like, I think I'm just going to be like sort of skimming records from here on out and just being like, pretty good band. And that's about it. I won't connect the way that I used to. But I totally can. You just got to work at it. And I don't work at anything, but that's something I'm willing to work at.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to put a whole lot of effort. I like things that just come easily and naturally. But that's something I won't give up on. So like I've had to force myself to like train myself to actively listen, around all of the distractions and just like so when I work, when I wash dishes, when I get in bed, it's like, oh, there won't even be light. Can't even look at anything.
Exactly. Yep.
And that's what it takes. Like it didn't used to, but now it does. And it's worth it because there's, it's like the only real respectful way to listen to music, I think.
Well, now my ears are competing with podcasts too. I'm a big podcast guy. So any time spent with a podcast is time not spent with music. And there's only so much time I have where I can tune everyone else out. You know what I mean? So it's either podcast or music. I'm listening to actually probably more podcasts nowadays.
Yeah. The thing is to podcasts, like I listen to a lot of podcasts in the shower, because it's easy to sort of scoot your phone up on the windowsill to a corner and get those like little acoustics bouncing.
Yeah.
And it doesn't sound totally like shit when you're showering. Where music, that's a terrible way to listen to music.
Yeah, right.
Well, it's never loud enough, I'll tell you that.
The car is where there's like some competition for airtime for me with podcasts and music, because I'm like, oh man, I really like to just zone out and listen to people talking while driving, but also I can turn this fucking thing up as loud as I want to. I can just dial in the EQ and just get this thing sounding incredible for 35 minutes on my way to work.
Yep.
And or back. So yeah, that's a conundrum often.
That I find doing that a lot to and from work. I'm like, do I fire up a record and get 3 songs or 4 songs in and don't get to finish it, and then I'm mad that I didn't finish it, or do I just listen to 20 minutes of whatever podcast I'm in the middle of, and I don't feel as bad because I'm just pressing pause on it like a TV show when I get out of the car.
Yeah. I think I usually end up choosing music because again, the podcast, like when I get home, as I'm walking around the house, like picking up the house, cleaning, wiping shit down, washing dishes, it can just be playing from my phone in the pocket of my shirt or in my, like the pocket. I can walk to the street and take the garbage out with a podcast just playing in my pocket, and like acoustically, it's fine. So I feel like it's a little bit more versatile in that sense. Whereas music, I got to really like take advantage of the speaker situation when I have it. When I have headphones on or I'm in my car.
I'm with you on it. In the car, it's a lot of podcasts. At night when I sleep, I have an earpiece in, podcasts all night, like all night. I listen. And with the music and connection, I don't even know, like a lot of the albums that I really dug from the last few years, I don't even know song titles. No clue.
Yeah. No,
I don't know. And like, that's a connection that, I mean, how many records have we deep dove? All the records we've deep dove on this podcast, I could tell you every fucking
Right, the track
song,
listing
every
in
track
order.
list,
Yeah.
the order. It's just different experience. I miss those old days though.
Yeah, but you had the time to like lay on your floor and pour over every millimeter of an insert.
Oh yeah.
Back then without the distractions that you have now. Yeah, same thing. Like I will love a record and I couldn't tell you a single title.
Yeah.
Like I think it's the third or fourth one. It starts with violin,
Yeah. But you hear the riff and you're like, oh yeah, I remember why I like this. And that's all that really matters. I'm right there with you. I
do have trouble though, like that whole like organizing when you hear a great album that you don't want to forget about and you're worried that you will because probably will. There have been some years where like I'll make a playlist that's like AOTY 2021 and I'll just drag the whole records into it so that I don't forget them.
I probably should have done that.
I'm having trouble this year. Like I feel like I feel like it's been quietly a very good year for music in a way that we're not going to really realize until like next month when we're all, scattering it on the table and like looking at it. But right now I'm like, I'm going to miss so many things that I loved this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to completely forget even exist.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real bummer. Yeah.
Well, and it maybe even sometimes it takes 5 years or longer to be like, wow, we were in it, so maybe we weren't paying as close attention to it as we thought we were. And stuff finds its way to you, or stuff hits a little differently 2-3 years later, and you're like, man, that was a really good year for music. I remember last year thinking last year was one of the best years of music that I had ever paid attention to, 2023. And I think this year was really good, and I didn't feel the same way about it. But I think you're right. I think down the line, I'm going to be like, damn, I listen to that a lot still. This is a pretty good year for music.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that has to do with like, it's an election year,
Yeah, a lot of distractions.
Gaza and Ukraine. Like, we've our attention's been sort of like diverted, for pretty big chunks of the year in different directions. So yeah, it's made it probably a little bit harder to pay attention.
Yeah.
Well, we had Steve Kleiseth on, who was he in Shy with you?
Yeah.
We had him on, I don't know, a couple months ago, and it was kind of a celebration of their Hide Nothing album with John Bunch of Sensefield. That record they did with them, and that album was a big slow burn. Like it kind of didn't do well in the moment, and now all these years later, people are kind of removed from maybe expectations of the time and what they expected. So the record has all these years to kind of stand alone and breathe on its own. And when you take it for what it is, it's really fucking good.
People like it, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes a band's legacy or the scene that a band is a part of, the fan base that the band already has and the expectations that fan base has of them.
Totally.
Sometimes that stuff can like really work against a band.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And it does take like have you ever spent much time with Mean Season?
I have. I'd have to look it up. I don't know if I downloaded something or have an old record, but it's been many years. This is from the mid 2000s. I kind of dug into them.
Okay, I think they may have done like a discography around then, like re-released everything. But they had an album called Grace in like 94, 95 maybe. Weird. Talk about weird hardcore and slurry vocals. The vocals are just like don't make any sense to whatever you thought hardcore sounded like. You're just like, what's fucking happening here? It's so drippy and slurry and drunken and just weird, oozing all over these sort of like metallic songs. But anyway, because it was the mid 90s and everyone was in absurdly baggy clothes and wearing headbands and had just dumb piercings all over their faces and stuff.
Yeah.
You assumed, I think even at the time, I think we knew this wasn't going to age well,
Yeah.
It was like, it felt so. And then as you get a little bit older, you just assume that that was a fluke and it wasn't really good. And it was youth, making like leading you to believe that this was good music. But like at the end of the day, it was just kind of bad, atonal, straight edge West Coast hardcore, new age records hardcore. And you dismiss it as that, and life goes on, and 10, 15 years pass, and then like you revisit it and you're like, how the fuck were these kids writing this stuff at the time?
Yeah.
Crazy.
And they probably didn't realize that they were like writing anything exceptional at the time. They may not realize it now, but it's like, and they may be able to write much better stuff now. I don't know. But like listening to it and just thinking of like what I was like at the age that they were writing songs like that. I mean, I was in bands at the age that they were when they wrote that. And my bands were not writing shit like that.
Right. Yeah.
We wrote some songs that people liked, but like they were not, they weren't feats of, like songwriting in any way. And like listening to that stuff now, I keep thinking like, if Mean Season Grace came out in 2024, it would be on Relapse Records, and they would be
wow, so that metallic,
but like,
because I think Relapse, I think it's
like,
a lot of technical stuff.
Yeah, but they dabble in kind of weird like Midnight and like stuff like that. That's a little bit hardcore, kind of adjacent, or like just Integrity is on Relapse, right? So I feel like or any number of big metal labels, I think could do something like, I think they would do really well with exactly the sound that they had in that year that a bunch of their peers didn't really realize. Like we all loved that album, but we didn't know it was good. It didn't have to be good. That was a requirement for like loving a record,
No, not at all. Right.
At all. But yeah, it's one of those records where like every couple of years I'd like throw it on and I'm just like, yep, it's better again.
I looked it up. The CD I had was The Memory and I Still Suffer in Love, and it was a compilation. Indecision Records put it out.
Yeah, I think that's their whole.
It's the whole Discog thing. It has like Pilgrim and Suffer and stuff like that on it.
Yep.
Yeah, I haven't thought about these guys in a long time, and I wasn't like big into them. I think I got them through the college radio station I worked at.
Yeah, it's just one of those like cool like like I said, I loved it, but I didn't know it was good. And then there was stuff that I loved and thought was good, like Snapcase, Looking Glass Self, that like nowadays I listen to and I'm like, it's not that good.
Well, a lot of it's the recording.
A lot of it is the recording, yeah. And I do like that they were doing the sort of groove kind of Helmet. They were sort of, I mean, actually, I would say Culture on our album Born of You. I think we were sort of definitely drawing a lot from Snapcase. So like nothing against them. We were fans, but listening back to it, it doesn't sound as like impressive or innovative as something like Mean Season, which didn't seem impressive or innovative at the time. It sounded cool, but it didn't sound, again, good.
Yeah. Versus
or
something
smart.
you liked. Yeah.
And now I'm like, fuck, this is really smart music, and I'm really impressed with these guys for writing this at that age.
Well, the thing about bands in that era is the blueprint wasn't set yet, and if it was, maybe it wasn't well known. Like it's all pre-internet. That's why the 90s to me is so fascinating. We've done a number of episodes on it. It's wild how different sounds permeated and spread, given that, I don't know, if you didn't have a record store near you, like, good luck. There's no way you would even know.
Yeah.
About this shit.
And if you did have one near you, it was going to shape your entire experience as a developing punk hardcore kid, because you were going to be at the mercy of the records they carried, which was dependent on the distros they had relationships with and the labels they had relationships with, and that was it. So, like,
or even the dude working behind the counter and what he's put on that was playing in the record store.
Yeah, for sure. Matt Fox from Shihalud he worked at Uncle Sam's Records in South Florida. They had a couple locations, but he worked at one of them. And I think he was probably the the guru of like for a lot of people who, you know, like you go in for recommendations, you know, this is like a hardcore kid who's in these bands and he's the one, you know, receiving all this stuff and throwing it on. So he's got a, you know, you can trust him to curate to some extent. Matt and I still text. We've been talking for a few years with a label who wants to put out the demo as like a standalone vinyl
Oh, right on.
release. We just haven't gotten around to it.
Let me guess, European label?
European label.
Of course, they a bunch of nerds.
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, Tony and I are going to relocate to Europe and rebrand the podcast and start a label. And yeah,
we probably
big in Europe,
we'd
big in
probably
Asia.
be bigger. Yeah, we'd probably be bigger
big
over
in
there.
Japan.
Too many Tonys take over Europe. Yep, I'm in.
What podcasts are you guys listening to that are keeping you from music?
So the ones I listen to Jeremy Bohm's from Touche, his podcast. It's the first ever podcast.
Okay.
Listen to that. Do you know Joe Budden, the rapper or the former rapper?
Yeah.
Joe Budden podcast. I listen to that. He puts out like 2 or 3 3-hour episodes a week. I listen to that when I go to sleep every night.
Okay. I think I've caught a couple of episodes of. Does he have like? There were like 3 co-hosts or something. It gets very.
It's like 5. Yeah.
There's like a lot of people
It's
talking.
very animated.
Yep. It's like a morning radio show.
Exactly. And he's as good as it gets. I love that.
You said former. Is he retired? He's not.
Yeah, he
straight up
stopped.
podcast now, pretty much, right?
Just podcast. Yeah, he retired from rapping like in 2018.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's a weekly Axe to Grind, which is Tom Sheehan of Indecision, Patrick Kindlon of Drug Church, those guys.
Okay. You know, I tried a couple of times to listen to it, and there was something that just never grabbed me. If something doesn't grab me like in the first few minutes, like podcast wise, I'll just switch it. And then I caught one episode and I forced myself to listen to it, and it just made me so mad. The whole format, the way. But then it turned out that it was like an anomaly of an episode because
right on.
It was only one guy around because the other guys were all gone. So he was trying something different. So then I revisited it like a 10th time but for the second time only made it through an entire episode. And it was like a regular episode with everyone back on their shit. And I enjoyed it. So now I'm like, okay, I think I finally get Axe to Grind. Let me.
Yeah. I dig that. I like Hard Lore, which is the dude from Harm's Way and Colin of Twitching Tongues.
Yeah.
Guest
I
dependent,
haven't listened
though.
to it, but I'm aware.
It's guest dependent for me. What else? Toby of H2O, his podcast, One Life, One Chance, guest dependent.
He's guest dependent, but when he has good ones, it's really good.
Yeah, I would say there's another one. Oh, 100 Words or Less. It's Ray Harkins? Ray Harkins from Taken.
Yeah. I feel
that one is guest dependent.
I'm there with you. Like it all depends. A lot of times I'm a la carte with if it's got somebody on that I want to listen to, or if it's somebody maybe we're prepping for, or we had, and I want to see how they did with them versus how we did with them, that type of thing. Bill Simmons, I listen to him a lot. Just sports stuff, NBA stuff. Big Celtics fan, big Patriots fan. So I do like to listen to him. And I don't know. It depends. I occasionally like Malcolm Gladwell's Revisionist History. The topic needs to be good for me, but when it is good, it's really good. And I think earlier on he did some stuff with like memory. There was an episode about Elvis not being able to sing a song because it was traumatic for him, and I was riveted by it because he wrote the song, like he knew all the words, but he just couldn't bring himself to sing it.
Oh, wow.
A couple seasons back. I'll try to find it now if I can send a link to it. But that album was cool.
Barrier.
Yeah, and just like he got on stage and like couldn't. I might be half misremembering it, but I remember it being very. I'm fascinated by memory just because I have a pretty good one, and I'm 40 now, and I'm like, when does it start to go? Like that it's who I am. So if it starts to go away, do I not?
Mine's terrible, but it's always been. Yeah,
and mine's always been good. So as it starts to fade a little bit, I don't like. I'm afraid I'm gonna not be me anymore. So that's I'm fascinated by trying to keep that where it's supposed to.
Gotta eat that lion's mane.
I know. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ginkgo biloba, isn't that what it is?
Yeah.
The other one, the New Scene podcast. It's the Iodine Records podcast.
Yeah, I've listened to those.
great interview questions, like great interviewer.
Yes, I had the same feelings, but I listened to a couple of those. I think there was one with Popeye from
Yeah,
from Calling Hours.
thoughtful, genuine questions.
He does a good job question wise.
Good. He's very good. He's actually one of my favorite interviewers. Probably the best. He could be the best interviewer that I listened to.
He does a very good job with that. I just find myself critiquing people who are interviewing because like I want to get better at it myself, and we've been doing this now for a while, and I'm like, I wouldn't have done what they did there, or oh, that's something I should think about asking that way, or changing how I ask something similar. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's been kind of, it's like learning your craft, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, you draw inspiration. You know, like to circle back to that tour we just did. It's kind of you have your ways of doing it for so long, and then you kind of like, you take notes on how other people are doing it. You're like, oh shit, that's actually kind of a good idea. I should try that.
Yeah, for a while, one of the questions we would ask is like when we interview band members of like who early on did you like tour with, or who was like the older brother band or older sister band that showed you like, hey, this is how you're actually supposed to tour, or this is how you perform on stage, like this is when you should tune, all this stuff. It's a fun question. It's interesting, some of the answers that actually, to tie into your band, the Gaslight anthem, we had Benny Horowitz, the drummer, and he said Against Me. And I know Andrew's in Against Me, right?
Yeah.
He said Against Me, like just taught them how to be pros, basically.
Huh.
Yeah, just kind of a level up in live performance.
We never had mentors. I mean, I think we observed and we tried to take what we could, but this tour was the first time I've ever consistently done vocal warm-ups, and it's
wow.
Night 2, I was talking to Chuck, and he was talking about this one incident he had where like they went to record an album and he had lost his voice, and he got sent to like a voice instructor who he saw for over the course of 3 days, probably like 70 minutes collectively, that blew his mind and changed his life and his voice like forever.
I think his voice has gotten better as he ages. I don't know.
God. Yeah, he sounds
crazy. The grit is just so dialed in.
And the grit, but then the ability to switch from the grit to these like perfect vibratos that just give you fucking goosebumps. Every single night I got goosebumps watching that thing. Yeah, and he was talking about some of the vocal exercises that guy gave him. And then I don't know what my problem has always been with stuff like that, but I've always been resistant to like earplugs, vocal warm-ups, anything like that. I drink some like ginger tea. That's the one thing that I've ever asked for on a rider is like fresh ginger root in a water kettle. And I think it's totally a placebo. I don't think it does anything, but it makes me feel like I know something about my physiology in my throat and like how to control it. And it's not. It's just a total crapshoot. It's whatever.
Well, does it get harder the older you get?
No.
Right.
I think in a weird way, it's actually gotten easier. I think that I did some damage to my throat when I was younger that changed. If I do warm ups where I go from like low to high, you get these little gaps every now and then where you break, and that's where like if you have calloused, polyped, whatever vocal cords, that's the range that they're interfering with. The inability to kind of flap close. But anyway, he pointed out a couple of exercises, and it got me like actually just being like, in the first couple of days of a tour, I'm always a little bit like, first day's rough, second day sounds good, third day's rough, fourth day on, I'm good. And then by the end of the tour, I'm in such a pocket where I'm like, I've never sounded this good in my life. Let's never stop. And then you go home.
That's the end of it. Yeah.
Yeah, but he had some he gave a little bit of input, and it was enough to like motivate not just myself but also James, who does backups, and Ryan, who was filling in for Andrew on this tour, was doing backups too. And by the end of the tour, like we were setting alarms on our phones to reconvene in the backstage room 40 minutes before set time so that we could start pull up the YouTube videos of this annoying Australian guy and do these vocal warm-ups. So yeah, I guess in a way that's sort of learning. Again, it was like being a student. This was a totally new experience. I've done a lot of touring. Nothing I've learned was relevant on this tour. It was a totally different experience. So it was kind of
that's cool though. To have that this far in, to have that different experience. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, new experience. Yeah.
And to also be at an age and at a place where like you don't have the ego or the the drama to be a dick about it, which I feel like I could have found a way to do when I was younger. But instead it was just like, this is the most amazing, humbling experience. I'm going to soak in everything that I fucking can from this. And just like,
you appreciate it.
Also very flattering to be like, that it's quicksand and hot water music. They could have taken anybody. So like the fact that we were on that package and getting a good response, it was like, oh yeah, whoever made this happen knew what they were fucking doing, and it was a good call, and everybody seems pretty happy with like how this all shook out, and I learned a lot, and it was cool. It was a really nice like full circle experience to be on the road in Europe like with those guys, and not just to be like having a cool time, but like learning from it.
Well, you guys are all older, and I mean, the bulk of the story's been written. Where like back then, you didn't know what, you like you said, there were, talks of Warped Tour and, maybe different opinions of how far to take the band. But this far removed, like you guys know what you are.
Yeah.
And actually, that's probably what lends itself to maybe Lightless being created in the way it did, in the pace that it was done.
The comfortability of just being able to go for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like just kind of, we knew it wouldn't be perfect because we were making it happen pretty quickly, but we felt like it was a fun idea. And we were also like, it's an EP. If you can't have fun with a 5-song EP, then like, what can you have fun with?
Right.
Everyone's cool with the like idea, the artwork, and the every time I'd show something, I'd be like, Earth Kebab, or whatever. Like everyone's like, love it, great, let's go. Yeah. So it was cool because it was just like, we're not taking anything too seriously. I think at this point we do what we do, and people will like it or they won't. And yeah.
What you just said, it's like, it reminds me of this podcast, which is like, that's kind of my thought process now, where like maybe 3 or 4 years ago, you don't know what this is going to turn into. So the decisions, and maybe you're more meticulous and you overthink things, and maybe we should have this person. I mean, maybe we shouldn't. Where now it's just like, we like what you like. We like what we like. As a listener, you're either in or you're out. I'm not catering to you. So you're either in or you're out. Yeah. Our catalog's all over the place.
And you're not going to be for everyone. Our music's not going to be for everyone. Your podcast's not going to be for everyone. That's fine. That's fine. It's for the people who do take to it.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just assume people who like our music and get our music are probably people who we would get along, we would enjoy hanging out with. And we usually tend to, when we just are hanging out after shows, getting into conversations and whatever, we're just like, oh yeah, it makes sense that you like our music because we like you, and we're like, we're all on a similar wavelength.
Yeah,
absolutely. All right, do we have more? I think
we're probably gonna wrap because I gotta get upstairs soonish.
Yeah. I was gonna start editing tonight. It's not happening now, but I'm okay with it because we get a whole other episode out of this. So
yeah, we'll split this up.
This will be a 2-parter. We'll note this. But yeah,
are you good with that, Damien? Double dose?
Sure. Yeah. You guys are gonna be like, all right, I think we're good. We're good on Damien.
No, absolutely not. No.
I'm looking at the calendar. Maybe this will be like a Christmas week bonus. Christmas bonus we'll do, or New Year's.
How many times have we done a 2-parter? Damien once, now twice, and then Alex from Crime and Stereo, we did it once.
Phil Taproot.
And Phil Taproot. It hasn't happened a lot.
No.
So it means the conversation's good. I mean, shit, if we had all the time in the world and we could have started this at 3 p.m. and gone till 7 at night, like that's a different story. But we all have families and jobs and other obligations, but this is awesome. I'm so happy we get to do it.
This is the shit I like to like wax poetic about anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sitting around my living room with a friend, or if I'm in a van with bandmates, like, yeah, like talking about this shit. It's, we're all still figuring it out, right? We'll never figure it out.
No, but we keep trying.
I know I won't. I certainly won't. If you guys figure it out, let me know.
I don't think anybody ever really does, but you can figure out who you are and what you like and the people you want to talk to about that stuff. And I feel like we've kind of figured that out here, which is cool.
Yeah. I think as a band, we figured out that like we're just going to do what we do, and it's going to be weird. And I think like actually Nathaniel made a comment after listening to Lightless for a week or so. He was like, you guys have this thing where like you put something new out and I go into it thinking, I don't know. And then like 2 days later, I'm just completely like hooked because it just ends up working for reasons that I can't explain.
Well, I would say with Lost in Space, I remember. So I don't know if I listened to Lightless before. No, I don't think I listened to Lost in Space before I got the EP, before the EP came out. So I listened to the EP, and then I get to the start of Lost in Space, and I thought to myself, oh, Any Joy just started. So it's a perfect segue. To me, Lost in Space is a perfect like handshake to Any Joy.
Yeah, baton.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the irony is it's at the end of the record. But in my head, I was like, this is a perfect segue.
But now you know it was written first.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you go.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That makes sense. I think I hear that too.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a I guess a beefiness to it. I don't know the correct term, the word in my head here, but there's a punch to it that I really like. I really like Lost in Space. That's what I told you. I like Scene Report and Lost in Space, my two favorites.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool EP because there are moments where I'm like, it is at the same time somehow more metal, more pop punk, and more hardcore than like anything we've done in a while. Like the same songs and parts will be these very opposing things, like a lot of them all at once in the mix. And it's kind of it's cool.
Very.
Well, Joe hits you with solos too, because you said last time you're a solo junkie.
Oh yeah. Now I'm like, I mean, he's a solo junkie too, so it helps. But yeah, that's my kind of go-to now. It's like, yo, we need a solo in that intro. We need a solo in that bridge.
Yes. You've got the man for the job.
Joe is happy to oblige. Yeah, we brought up like White Lion. The guitarist of White Lion, Vito Bratta. I was like, you got to bring that Vito Bratta on this thing, and I feel like he kind of did at the beginning of I guess it's Lost in Space, right?
Yeah, Lost in Space. Yeah, starts with that.
Yeah, we didn't play any of those songs on this tour.
Really?
Yeah, it was tough because circling back to something that came up very early on, like now that there's more stuff, we have to be a little more choosy. We only had 30 minutes. Like exactly 30 minutes, because this something else we learned is like tours on this level kind of are it's a very mechanical, and you got to respect the schedule. So we had 30 minutes. We didn't want to drag at any point by playing something that had come out less than a week earlier.
Yeah.
Fair. So we were like, even though there was like a video for Lost in Space and Skimming. Let's just play bangers. Let's just play the stuff that gets people moving in case there's anyone there, So we decided we're going to sell this EP because it just came out, and we'll have it on the merch table, but we're not going to play anything from it. But we had a day off in Belgium early on in the tour, and we booked a show as Friends Russ separately from the tour, booked a show at a little 65 capacity tiny little bar with like a 3-inch high stage that housed a 4-color screen printing wheel. And if they would have a show, they would just move the press.
Yeah.
And the band would get set up there. and it was perfect. It was like everything we needed, just one of those on this tour, to just be connected to kind of like our roots or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Was that a place called Print Bar?
Print Bar, yeah.
You know what's funny is earlier today I looked up what your set list was on Setlist FM, and I happened to pick that show, and I noticed you played 2 Lightless songs.
It's
so I assumed you played one. That's
it's
crazy.
The
that's the only one I picked. That's the only one I looked at.
Yeah, we didn't budge we played the same set every night at the other shows, and it did not include Lost in Space or Skimming or Home is Where the Heart Aches, which is also that show. And we didn't play at any of the other shows. So we had more time because we were like, well, it's our show. It's a tiny little place. They don't care how long this goes on. So let's play as long as we can. So like we gave those songs a shot. And it was pretty good for like a first pass. We'll get to them eventually.
Yeah, I think 65 person capacity. That's my kind of show right there.
Yeah, that's fun.
Oh, it was awesome. Yeah. It was awesome.
It's a basement show.
Yeah, a little sweaty. At one point, Joe, James, and I were all up on top of the crowd, being around this closet of a room. It was great.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we would have done it on our other day off, but that was like a travel day, and we couldn't spare the time. But yeah, we wanted to do like at least one thing that was just kind of a weird sort of surprise thing.
Yeah. How long did you play for? Like an hour?
Something like that. Yeah, 50 minutes, something like that. And the place, it was really cool because they also they made shirts.
Yeah, I'm on their Facebook right now.
You see it with the orange print, that's their deal, is like they give you a little bit of the door, but they also print like a limited run of shirts that you then can sell from your merch table. And the shirts looked awesome. And the band that we played with, the local, they were called Eastwood, was fucking awesome. And it was really cool. We were really glad that they were the band that got put on the bill. We didn't know who they were or anything. One of the singers had a very Chuck kind of like sort of, it'd be easy to sort of liken them to Hot Water Music because there were a lot of Chuckisms in one of the guys' vocals, but he used them very differently and the music was very different. And they were like so good live. It was just a really cool experience. The hosts of the place were great. The food was great.
Oh. Yeah. See, that's the cool thing about being on tour. You just don't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually probably a good break from the Barricade big stage shows too.
Yeah. We were like, do something weird. Like, so we reached out to some Belgian friends and we were like, do you know anyone that works at a planetarium, or like, is there some place we can play that?
Yes.
You just do some weird like show.
A coffee shop.
Yeah.
Planetarium, but you should just find some planetariums in the States and tour those. Just play the Lightless EP in full.
Yeah, as friends Russ laser light show.
Yeah, we did like literally ask if they had any in the planetarium, and then after that we were going for like not a terrarium,
solarium,
like one of those big indoor plant garden kind of cactus.
Solarium,
like in Biodome.
Yeah, Biodome, right?
Well, sadly, Maine I don't think has what you're looking for. So, As Friends Russ will not be playing Maine anytime soon.
There was a planetarium at one point, though, wasn't there? I feel like we went to a planetarium in like the summer at Red Camp.
It's on the USM campus.
Okay, and that's where I went to school. So maybe we can pull some strings and get you to the planetarium at the University of Southern Maine in Gorham or Portland. I don't know. It's probably Portland. Yeah.
Oh, Botanical Garden.
Botanical Garden. There it is.
There it is. That's what they call it when it's actually a place that you're supposed to go and
Boothby.
Like,
we'll bring them up to Boothby. To the Botanical Gardens.
Museum
Botanical
of
Garden. Oh yeah.
Botanical Garden. Yeah. We asked if they were botanical gardens. I mean, because they don't have Denny's,
Yeah. What the fuck is up, Botanical Garden?
That'd be perfect. Yeah. That's a mic drop right there. I'm calling it. Damien, thanks for joining us again, man.
Yeah.
And we'll this will be the end of probably part 2, but well, maybe I'll put it at the end of both. Thanks,
right.
Thanks for coming on with
for
us.
not letting me let you end the episode.
Thank you for listening to Podioslave. We are at Podioslave on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of the places that you can find us on social media. Facebook, Podioslave Podcast. YouTube, Podioslave Podcast there. Email us at podioslavepodcast@gmail.com. And hey, if you want to become a supporter, click on the link at the bottom of the episode and give us $1, give us $5. It keeps the lights on, keeps us going. We really appreciate that stuff. Thank you.